Hello, welcome everyone. It looks like we are good to go. First, I want to welcome our panelists for joining me today to talk about this exciting topic of retail media meeting affiliate marketing. I will have them introduce themselves first with Jim.
Hi, I'm Jim Nichols. I've been kicking around affiliates since about 1999. Have worked with several of the networks, worked on publisher side, brand side, and now run a small agency.
Stephanie.
And I'm Stephanie Appel. I'm from Awin and ShareSale. I work with our agencies. I've been there for about 7 years, and I also work alongside the brand partnerships team, which relates to our topic today.
And Tom.
Hey, I'm Tom DeFloria. I oversee the e-commerce division here at Tenerity. I'm actually work in the retail media space with our partners and hosts, which are direct to brand, helping them unlock ancillary revenue streams and in their post-purchase pages, and then a strong affiliate channel that drives our cashback site. So kind of working both worlds.
And Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Bennett, Director of Performance Solutions at Rakuten Advertising. I've been in the space over a decade, both working agency side and client side, but right now at Rakuten Advertising, I oversee our paid media business called Performance Solutions, which engulfs paid search, paid social, programmatic, and retail media.
And I am Tricia Meyer, your host for today. I'm the executive director of the PMA, and I know absolutely nothing about retail media. So this is all totally new for me, and I'm kind of learning with all of you who are watching. I would like to invite all of you who are watching us on LinkedIn right now, if you could drop in just a quick introduction of who you are, what your company is, and then kind of what your connection is to this topic. Are you already working in retail media yourself as a publisher? Are you an agency or a brand who is kind of tapping into this and looking to learn more? Or are you somebody like me who just saw this topic and was like, I don't know what that is, but if the PMA is talking about it, it must be something that I need to learn about. So drop any introductions in there. We'd love to know who all we have out there. Also, feel free to drop in questions. If you came into this webinar, you're like, I have a dying need to know something and I've been waiting to ask these experts about this, go ahead and drop it in now. Or as we're having the conversation, at any point, drop them in there. And then as things go, I'll try to work those in with our panelists, especially if they're things that I don't think that they'll already be covering. I also would like to thank Awin for sponsoring this for us. They have been a very generous sponsor of the PMA for years, including former ShareSale CEO being our president for a long time. So kind of since the beginning of the PMA, we've had Awin and ShareSale as big supporters. And I also have to just say, this is like a star panel for the PMA because we have 3 industry champions, including Tenerity as our newest industry champion, plus Jim is the vice president of our board of directors. So great lineup that we have for you today, and hopefully a lot to learn. So how did we even end up on this topic? Like I said, I know nothing about it. So why am I moderating this thing? Well, I kind of blame Jim to start with, because I first saw this article pop up on Affiverse that Jim had written about it. And, it comes through my feed and it says something about RMNs. And I was like, retail me not? What are we talking about? Retail me not? Are we still call them that? Was there something new with them? And I start reading it. I was like, oh no, not that RMN. Okay, we have a new RMN in affiliate marketing. That's interesting. And then Brooke from FMTC, the very next day in the FMTC newsletter says the new RMN in affiliate marketing, it's not retail me not anymore. And I was like, everybody's thinking the same thing. We all thought that it was just retail me not. And now we're learning it's this whole new thing that we have to talk about. And so from there, that article, and then at PI Live, actually our treasurer of the PMA, Kelly Brown, she moderated a panel at PI Live. So at that point, it was like, okay, Jim's talking about it, PI Live's talking about it, Brooke mentions it in the FMTC newsletter. This is kind of a big thing that we need to be talking about. So that's kind of how this came together. Interestingly, to me, it's really easy when I go to the PMA members and say, hey, I need experts to talk about a certain topic. All I have to do is kind of cast the net and 25 people respond immediately. Oh yeah, I can talk about that. That was not the case for this topic. It was really interesting. So many agencies that I reached out to. I never even did get an agency to be a part of this because every agency I reached out to said, yeah, like we're doing this and we're dabbling in it, but we're still trying to figure it out. So I don't really feel like an expert on this topic yet. And that to me fueled me even more to put this panel together, because if we have that many PMA members who know that they need to learn about it and who are trying to learn about it, but don't feel like they're expert enough to speak on a panel like this, it means that it's a great space for us to do some education. So see lots of people coming in, agencies, some publishers, networks. So this is going to be awesome. So let's just jump right in. And, since you started this whole thing, Jim, why don't you start? Just give us like the basic background, the primer on what is retail media and how big is it and why should we care?
Sure. So, at the 55,000 foot level, think about this as retailers are now getting into the media business. So, retail media networks are media platforms run by retailers where the suppliers of products in those retailers can actually buy ads that appear on that brand's website or in their app. Right now, there's more to it than that now. There's lots of advertising activity off the site using the websites or using the retailer's targeting data. But the strength of this really comes from two areas. The first is retailers have amazing data on both the demographics, psychographics, as well as the purchase patterns of their customers. So this is great targeting data. The second part they have is proximity, meaning proximity to the buying, right? And so if you're on a website and you're thinking about making a purchase, having ads appear there can really affect the amount of product that a brand is selling on that site. This space has grown like a weed. It's crazy. So 7 years ago, there was basically no space. This year, eMarketer projects it'll be over $60 billion in the United States. 4 billion in the UK. It's getting slightly later start there, but it's growing like crazy. It's now appearing in Germany, in France, and in markets in Asia. But the US is the biggest market at this point.
So, Stephanie, for those of us who have not seen it like in the wild, can you give us some examples of like where we maybe actually did see this and didn't even know it?
That's exactly my point. I think you're probably interacting with these ads more than you would expect. I'd say that Amazon is the biggest. They were one of the first people that started a retail media network back in 2012. So constantly, as you're going through Amazon, as you're going through these large retailers, they have thousands and thousands of products on their site. However, they strategically place, ads right in front of you so that you're more likely to purchase that product over another product. And that's all through the retail media ad placements and opportunities. I guess another opportunity or another version of this that I can probably speak to is the beauty space and going to Ulta, who has their own retail media network, and they have 25,000 products on site. I always go to their site thinking I'm going to buy one product and end up buying 6 more because of these very strategic, personalized ads that they place on their site that are usually in those sponsored placements. It's in display ads across social media. Influencer marketing is now involved as well. It can even reach to in-store sampling too. So they're really hitting you at the point of purchase, and they're kind of targeting those ads to you, knowing about your personal shopping habits, the rewards program, taking this kind of first-party data and making it super personal to you.
Yeah, and I want to double tap on that because who I've seen make huge strides is Walmart. Walmart has made huge strides, have made huge changes. They've developed their in-store product. It's incredible what they've been able to do in a very short period of time as well.
Do we know if we're interacting with these? Like, do you know by looking at something that it's different than just going to the site and seeing a product and buying it? Can you tell?
Stephanie, you can answer if you would like.
See that there are times where you see that sponsored placement, you see that says sponsored on the ad. It's usually really small in the corner. It's still something that's trending. It's still something that you're seeing and you're likely to buy. So fits, and it's really, it doesn't look like an ad. Like, it's not something that's random. It's really, it makes sense with the products that you're already searching for. But Lauren, I'd love to hear more about what you had to say too.
Yeah. So yes, exactly what you said, I was going to say as well. And a lot of them that say sponsored on them are more product based. So they would remind you of the shopping tab that you would see in like a Google space. Very much, product image with the price right there, linked to the item store. I just have Amazon in my mind when I'm thinking about that. But some that don't have the sponsored piece to it are more of like the display type ads, because Amazon did roll out their own display type of ad that lands on a brand page that you can then shop through as well. So there are different types of ads that some are more blatant, where you would be like, okay, that's definitely a sponsored product ad. But then there are some that mimic more of what a display ad would be, which can or cannot be detectable.
I feel like as a consumer now and be looking at everything like, I wonder what that is.
Are they paying for that or not?
Right.
Because
I want to know.
we're
I
not
just
even,
wanna know.
we're not even talking about the organic space. We're just talking about the paid ad
Right.
space.
Wow. All right. So thinking about these retail media networks, like just in general, Tom being one, talk to us first about the benefits in working with the retail media networks.
Yeah, so as Jim was saying, just the sheer volume of traffic that are going through these sites. I mean, Amazon is always the one that we start with, but to Lauren's point, Walmart Connect and Target has Roundel now, they just have a massive amount of traffic, and that's where consumers are starting their search a lot. And people participating in retail media want to intercept those consumers while they're on their path of purchase or somewhere within that shopping ecosystem. So I think there's a sheer volume that's going through these large retail media networks is the first thing. One of the big things that as well is future proofed. And so we're working with first party data here. And Google's gonna take those cookies away at some point. They keep threatening every year and delaying. But at some point things are gonna radically change, and people are future proofing, they're looking for future proof solutions now, and retail media networks offer them.
And one of the interesting things there is to understand the money for the retailer from an RMN. So when you sell stuff in a store, it's not untypical for the margin to be on those products like 1 to 3%, right? That's the dirty little secret of retail, is that margins are really low. When you move to retail media, the margins are somewhere between 60 and 90% for on-site advertising. So that means a relatively small portion of the revenue for a company can make up a huge portion of the profit for that business. McKinsey says actually in about 10 years, retailers will make more than half of their money through tasks other than selling things like media, things like their elements of their loyalty program. So it gives you a sense of the retailers absolutely love these programs. And in addition to what Tom has said about the value of those things, retailers also have this built-in set of prospects and customers for these retail networks. Because let's say you're trying to introduce a product into one of these stores. Part of your program can either be conditioned on buying retail media, or they can very, 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 very strongly encourage a brand to buy retail media. And that's one of the reasons why these have grown so quickly. So brands love them, but retailers arguably love them even more.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump onto that because when we think about the margin and the revenue that the retailers are now getting, that just means they can refuel their own branding and their own performance marketing through affiliate and other channels. So it just further fuels the whole marketing budget as a whole with how profitable the retail media networks are for the retailers themselves.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a dumb question. Okay, we're using them interchangeably. We're talking about retail media networks, and then abbreviating using the acronym RMN. did you use the terminology just interchangeably? Every retail media is a retail media network, or is there a difference?
That's a great question and a really thing to distinguish. So retail media, the way that I'll describe it, Jim will probably do a better job, but it's the ecosystem of really discussing how do you generate this ancillary secondary revenue, to Jim's point, that is literally critical for profitability, right? So retailers operating in a very low margin business are finding a way, the way that I see it is to increase their value per visitor. So they're driving all of this traffic. How do they look at each visitor and say, how do we raise the value per visitor, even if maybe they're not purchasing more products from us, right? So I think that's a really distinct distinction of what is retail media as an ecosystem or an idea. A retail media network are these very mature, and we can name off the list of them from Amazon to Walmart, Target, et cetera. Ulta is a great example too, Lauren, of mature retail media networks that offer brands the opportunity to intercept those consumers during their path of purchase or wherever they're at on their site. So that's the way that I define those lines. I'm glad you brought that point up because it's very important to distinguish.
Okay, so all of you watching the webinar now, it's totally okay to ask stupid questions because maybe they're okay questions after all. So go ahead and pop them in out there. Okay, so we talked about the benefits and the way that we kind of do all these PMA webinars. We talked about benefits, but let's also talk about like what's the Achilles heel of a retail media network?
I could start there. So it's hard to say exactly that it's an Achilles heel, but the retail media network space is interesting because it really gets back to retailers and the website traffic that you see on those sites, right? So sites like Amazon, Walmart, Target get people coming back over and over again, consuming lots of pages multiple times a week. There are now more than 300 retail media networks in the United States, right? And for many of them, mid-size and even small to mid-size retailers, the relatively small grocery store chain in the Southeast in the US, Piggly Wiggly, has a retail media network, right? Now, when you start getting when your site traffic begins to be smaller, right, you have less inventory to sell on your website. And as a result, retail media networks have gotten into buying media across the web using their targeting data in order to expand the amount of revenue they can get through this and the amount of touch points they can have against their customers. So brands sometimes think this is all on site, but a lot of it actually isn't, right? That doesn't make it bad, but it isn't.
Yeah, and in my position, we have this conversation a lot because a lot of our direct contacts, their goals are centered around D2C efforts. So it's about driving traffic to the brand site and then having retail media sites or affiliate be more, they're separate budgets for the most part and with separate teams for the most part. So it's how do they all complement each other? So we have this conversation a lot with brands that leverage wholesalers to do resale of their products. It's a lot of the same conversations with that. So what are the goals? What kinds of profitability do you need to see from your retail media partners and your networks that you work with? Versus what you would set for your on-site goals, and how do we make sure that we're not leaning more towards one way or the other way and keeping everything as even as possible to maintain the profitability for the brand themselves as well.
Yeah, and that's great points. And Jim made a great point about inventory. And so there is a critical mass of how much inventory is available in each RMN. Conversations often start in it's just basic economics, right? As demand is significantly increasing. I think one of the stats you shared, Jim, is 27% of all digital spend is going to be transitioned into retail media networks over the next couple of years. And then I think 50% or more as it kind of scales up. So that increased competition is raising price, reducing inventory. And a lot or some of the larger RMNs are requiring commitments. So for some brands that can be a deterrent or an Achilles heel, if you will, to being able to participate in the space, or to what extent they can participate in the space.
I'd say too, one of the weaknesses that we didn't touch on. I'm not sure if it's a true Achilles heel, but it's actually something, Tricia, you mentioned earlier, is just this fine line between data and consumer trust. And like, is this an ad? Is this not an ad? Does this feel wrong that they're sending me this ad because I was just looking at this product? And sometimes I do think that as the consumer, you are a little bit overwhelmed with ads, and it can diminish the effectiveness of these ads sometimes too. However, I know that that's just a fine line that we're always trying to tread in this space. And so I do think it's so important, the amount of data that these RMNs hold, and they are using that first party data, which is just such a breadth of information. So I do think that that could potentially be an Achilles heel as well.
I think that's a really good point, because if you think about these organizations, the way the RMN organizations have been developed is kind of next to the marketing organization of that site. So the retail officer and the head of the RMN are usually different people, right? And have different goals, different KPIs, and so forth. And so it's important that retailers think about the overall customer experience, because no shopper wants to be inundated with messages from the retail brand and all these merchant brands, and the clutter of it could be absolutely horrendous.
Right. So obviously, Performance Marketing Association, we are performance marketing, we are affiliate marketing. Is RMN part of affiliate marketing? Is it outside of affiliate marketing? Does it overlap with affiliate marketing? Talk about that. Like, what is this overlap here between affiliate marketing and retail media?
It's really
interesting
interesting
because you're all here and you all do both.
I was just going to mention non-endemic retail media, which is something we haven't touched on yet. So the retail media that we've taught, retail media networks, and the examples that we've given have been endemic retail media, where it's a product that they're already selling from that retailer and they're just promoting it. And then there's non-endemic retail media, which is a complementing product, but it's not actually a product that's sold on that retailer's website. So it's a non-competing, but still related, still complementing product. And then you're going to go to another website and purchase that actual product. So that's where affiliate comes in, because that's really mimicking our model exactly. And so there's definitely some crossover there. And I think that that's how people are starting to get interested and able to create their own retail media networks through this non-endemic retail media.
So an example there I think is great is Home Depot. So I think about half of the business for Home Depot comes from like builders, contractors, handymen, like professionals, right? So why wouldn't, let's say, a quick service restaurant want to buy that particular audience in the morning to sell, breakfast meal deals, or to get people ready for lunchtime, or to sell Gatorade, right? Those kind of fits can be really, really interesting. And this targeting data is so valuable. And as third-party data goes away, as we say, Tom, eventually, right? the importance of first-party data sources like this is going to keep going up.
Well, Tom, you are a retail media network and you're an industry champion of the PMA.
Yeah, so I'm in the retail media space, so that's why I kind of jumped in on that question. We actually participate in the retail media networks, so not to add confusion, but we specifically have a post-transaction banner that we work with lots of different brands. In the large retail media networks, we buy inventory, right? So with brands, we're direct and have a much closer relationship with our partners, but in that retail media network ecosystem, we participate wherever we can find a good fit for us. To Stephanie's point, it's non-endemic. So we actually offer cash. So it's just cash off of the last purchase that they made. That's our hook. And so we actually have connective tissue. That's why I'm near and dear to my heart with this topics, because once someone accepts that offer, they become a member to our cashback site, which is driven by some of these fine people and their merchants. So we kind of have a connective tissue, or a unique connective tissue, between non-endemic ads or banners that are placed, acquiring members, and then a cashback site where all of our affiliates and merchants are critical. I do think the other thing that's important too is every value per visitor is going up within retail media networks. So affiliate traffic and affiliate partners driving traffic is, the traffic is worth more today than it was a couple years ago when you could only just buy products.
So we have a lot of agencies in PMA, a lot of agencies and brands that are watching the webinar right now. What are some strategies for them in working within this retail media space? Tom, Jim?
I think the biggest strategy is to find out for your brand what's on brand and where to participate. So there's a lot of opportunities in there. And to a couple people's point, sometimes just leveraging the first party data and building a better, highly targeted audience and maybe syndicating that even elsewhere outside of the RMN might be your entry point. But a lot of the brands that we talk to, it's their comfort level of where they want to participate within the ecosystem that stays on brand for them and how they want to communicate with their customers or future customers.
And I'll double tap on that with the retail data specifically, because there are plenty of partners out there that also have access to it that can serve programmatically. So again, it's setting the right goals, whether it's a D2C effort, whether it's within the retail media network efforts, whether it's in the affiliate space. I think it goes back to how do you want to diversify your media mix and have separate budgets across these three pillars, we'll call them for lack of a better word. And what are the goals with each one? What deems success for each one of those sectors?
I mean, this is at its core media, right? So it's very well targeted media that appears on retail sites as well as off of them, right? And so buying retail media is a very viable option for a lot of brand budgets, provided the KPIs are, as you say, as someone said on this call, we sell through wholesalers, so selling more goods overall as opposed to selling goods on a DTC versus on another website. One of the ways that this has appeal for some brands is that the conversion rates on sites like Amazon are much higher than on DTC sites. And so many have a budget for RMNs and they have a budget for the DTC site, right? But all this is going to have to change, right? It's like every other new kind of digital media, it appears in a silo, and then the walls of those silos have to break down over time. And brands are going to have to think holistically about these budgets. And I think the most important thing that agencies in our world can do, for instance, the OPMs in the affiliate space, is to learn a lot about this, learn how their clients are planning and buying retail media so that they can begin to play a role in this area, right? The value of an agency is just as strong in this world as it is in another world, in the traditional media world.
And some of the OPMs may not even know that the brands that they're working with are doing this because it's a different part of the company, right? So it might be somebody else that's actually doing this. And as outsourced program management, they don't even, they don't have any say so in that, or they may not even know exactly what's going on or haven't, really learned about it enough yet.
That's a question for the other three on this panel isn't it always a different person or almost always a different person than the affiliate manager who is operating those budgets?
In our experience, yes. Even when we're talking about performance marketing, what we've noticed is those that are managing the retail media in the broadest term budgets are actually sitting under e-com and not performance marketing. So there are some teams that merge their performance marketing and affiliate, but we haven't really quite seen one person overseeing both retail media budgets and performance marketing budgets, including affiliate budgets too. We have not seen that. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I disagree completely with you, Lauren. It has been, it's a big conversation that we have to have, and there are a lot of people it usually has to go through to get these kinds of campaigns approved or to understand more about what you're doing from the bigger picture. I think that education plays a big part into that, and just what can be done through the affiliate channel and how we all kind of relate and overlap.
It's a lot similar to the conversations that we have internally at Rakuten Advertising, because my sector is quite separate from affiliate, but we do internally have a lot of conversations of where we can overlap, where we can supplement and drive better performance holistically. So I think it's just broadening that scope and having those conversations, bigger conversations too.
And I think one of the things that an agency can understand very easily, which is affiliate. Well, we've been saying affiliates 15 billion for 4 or 5 years. So I'm going to say it's 18 billion now. So affiliates 18 billion. Retail media is 60 billion. That's a hell of a lot bigger. And so there's a huge opportunity if you can figure out how to master this space and break into other areas of the organization, e-com or marketing, wherever it's being managed from, right? It's an enormous amount of money. And the data and the performance and the data-driven marketing chops that an affiliate person has, I think, are very relevant in this space. So pursuing your interest in this and trying to gain more responsibility in this area is going to be good for your career and your budget.
So you want to get involved in retail media, you want to work with a retail media network. What are some strategies for working within those retail media networks? Where do you even start?
In my opinion, I would start with what you have control over and what resources you currently have. So where I've seen the most success with our advertisers is getting their Amazon store set up and starting to learn through what you can run in Amazon. It's self-serve, it's easy to follow, they have a lot of their own certifications. That's been our easy in to really get the grasp of it. The second thing is having amazing partners. We partner with Criteo with their retail media network. We have ties to Epsilon, formerly known as CitrusAd, Instacart. So we have some relationships there too. And third, having the right tech stack. We use Sky as our platform across everything that we run. So having them as a close partner really helps us with reporting and insights, bringing all of the data into one place so that we can strategize. So get your foot in the door, have a great partner, agency partner. If you do it in-house, make sure you have the right tech stack so that you can report on what your findings are and have the insights so that you know all the dollars that you're putting in all these different places are driving profitability for your business.
So I was going to actually ask you and Stephanie to discuss a little bit about attribution and how that might change, because a strategy and moving budget is only as good as the attribution and the proof source afterwards, as we all know. Every month is financials. So how does that strategy, or how have you seen that strategy maybe change when your brands are retail media networks?
Yeah, so each of these retail media guys have their own walled gardens. So there's no overlap, there's no halo effect that can be tracked from Amazon to your D2C efforts, or how does affiliate play into retail media. There's quite a deep line in the sand right now. But as Jim mentioned earlier, over time, I see that really having to break down. So at this time, it's more so having a really strong grasp of how all of these different channels currently perform, what profitability you need to maintain, but also looking at your marketing funnel. As I've been learning, I don't have an affiliate background, but as I've been learning about affiliate has its own funnel now too, talking about influencers, content. It's not just about coupons anymore. So they then in of itself has its own marketing funnel. Same with D2C, of course, but so does retail media. So it's really understanding the placements, how they work, what the profitability is for each of those, and what a business needs to see or achieve based off of the costs that are being associated with those platforms to drive the revenue that's needed.
One thing that we talk about at the network is using affiliate marketing to kind of combat some of those cons that we just talked about, with like the transparency and the tracking and not being able to see this data. And so by using this model in the affiliate channel and finding another brand that you're interested in working with and using each other kind of to build your own retail media network. You can use that. We call it brand to brand partnerships, but non-endemic retail media is basically what we're modeling. And you can create monetizing your own content using your checkout page to post an ad for another brand. And that's where you're kind of including this. And if you're doing it through the affiliate channel, you have those tracking links, you have that reporting, you're really able to see what performance came through, and it's all transparent since you're acting basically as the publisher and the advertiser, especially if you're reciprocating that relationship. So that's on a much lower level, but it's something that if you wanted to take a baby step and it be a little bit less risky, a little low risk, low cost, you're only paying on performance, it's a way that you can kind of get involved. And it's a little bit outside of the retail media network, but it's still something where you can get creative with your ads and collaborate with other brands. And so we've seen that to be successful too.
You know, I think also there's an opportunity for publishers here. I'm not sure if it's quite yet, but soon. These retailers are constantly trying to get more traffic to their websites. And I think that performance programs from publishers that can drive traffic to those retail sites are going to help power our industry in the future, because honestly, they can monetize the traffic extremely well, right? And in an extremely high margin way. And if we're doing it on a performance basis, they can sort of play the float between the two numbers, and our publishers win as well then.
Tom, you want to share a little of the secret sauce of where you are on this, or the different opportunities that you see?
Yeah, one that's kind of unique is one of the we were talking with a very large electronics retailer, and he made the comment that we're already in such an extremely low margin business that we would love to participate more with affiliates and other partners like that, but the commissions are there's just a point where they can't take any more of that traffic. They have to figure something out. So when we're helping them unlock ancillary revenue, so releasing free cash flow, they're using those funds and deploying them to strategic initiatives like growing affiliate traffic, or to Jim's point, finding other mechanisms and ways, and maybe that's just more media placements to drive traffic to their site. So it's a chicken and egg situation. They have to find some free cash flow, and that's what we actually help them do. But where they redeploy it and how they redeploy it is really critical, whether that's ramping up their affiliates or finding other mechanisms of driving traffic.
So what are some of the challenges then? I mean, it sounds like this is all kind of complicated. There's a lot to it. So what are some of the challenges of working within these RMNs?
Yeah, Lauren made the key point of a walled garden. But now there's more walled gardens to participate in.
300 more.
Right. So not only just learning the intricacies of 300 different retail media networks, but they can be more rigid, not just from a placement availability perspective or inventory perspective, but the kinds of ads or maybe what your ad says. So it's just that walled garden experience times 300, as Jim said.
I think the thing that we all need to recognize, I just come back to 60 billion in 7 years. It took us in affiliate, 27 years to get to 17, 18 billion. This got to 60 billion in 7, and there's no sign of that stopping. It'll be 100 billion in 2025 or 2026. That money is coming from somewhere, right? Brands aren't magically printing more money. So affiliate has to figure out ways to connect to this space, because otherwise the money is going to get taken away. Not to say that our performance isn't great, but affiliate always has that reputational issue too, which is CMOs and e-commerce teams love retail media. How can you go wrong with putting an ad someplace that's right near where you want to buy with better targeting data, right? A lot of CMOs don't love affiliate. So we need to figure out how we fit into this and to demonstrate the value that we can provide in addition to it and integrated with it.
So what is on the horizon for working with these networks? And you know, to what extent is it we're talking about there's a little overlap with affiliate now? What's going to happen? Just here looking in the crystal ball, what's going to happen with these retail media networks and what's going to happen with affiliate in these retail media networks? I'm sure you all stay up late thinking about this, so.
I think the non-endemic ad part, as Stephanie was touching on, is going to continue to grow. I think, Jim, one of the things that you circulated, that I think the data part is like 30% or 38% of the total revenue, which is a massive amount. And so I think, to people's point, there's only so much inventory that can be available on certain sites. And so finding those other pockets of where are the growth areas within the retail media network, that they really can double down on, and has the opportunity to grow more, because there's only so much space for ads. So
I think agencies are also getting really creative in the ways that they work with retail media networks. There are agencies now that act as the sales team for their retailers' RMNs, right? So you have a client, X grocery stores, and your agency actually acts as the sales force to bring demand into your retail media network. This is something that's really valuable, particularly if your brand is taking more of a marketplace strategy versus a first party retail strategy, right? So if you're a marketplace like a Walmart or something like that, you've got millions of products that are never sold in your stores, right? And people list their products and so forth. And so bringing demand to these companies is something that they value. So that's definitely, I think, a way agencies can get creative and imaginative, because there's a lot of opportunity, but there are a lot of gaps that need to get filled right now.
So money's obviously going into retail media, and it has to come from somewhere. And I know every couple of years we hear affiliate marketing's dead. Long live affiliate marketing. But Jim, even the title of your article, will retail media networks hurt affiliate? Will they, or is it just another opportunity for affiliate?
I think it all depends on how affiliate reacts, right? That, like, affiliate as a space traditionally has been this incredibly innovative area where, you know, somebody comes up with a new ad format, or we come up with a new ad format and we put them out there. We're the first movers, we make money. Then, you know, Google and Meta and all get involved in that space, and then we move on to the next one and the next one, right? What has worried me about this space is that it is gigantic and very few people in our space know about it. And that's why I was really excited about this webinar and having these experts on it. I primarily relate to this space from a strategic perspective. I do research for retail media networks and stuff. I don't buy them, right, or plan or buy them. But what I love is seeing innovators and innovator companies in our space taking advantage of this. And, you know, Lauren and I at Optimism had this conversation about it. It's like, I didn't realize how integral RMNs are for their service lines, right? It's just one example. I know the same is true for the other companies represented here, right? So there's a lot that can be done, but if we ignore this one because it's complicated, you know, it's just not going to be good for this industry. It's going to really hamper our growth. I don't mean to be the doomsayer there. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I'm taking this from the negative. Maybe I should say there's huge opportunity because there's lots of spaces that are open and empty and da, da, da. But I don't see the space digging into this one, and we need to.
I've had a couple of questions come in from our audience, but please go ahead and start dropping them in there, because now is a great time for me to start asking them of our panelists. First of all, how does a merchant or agency even find these? Like, what do they need to do to even be able to find these retail media networks to work with them? I mean, it's easy. Everybody knows how to find publishers. We talk about that all the time, but how do you find the retail media networks?
You know, I don't have the list offhand, but if you do a Google search for list of retail media networks, there's a website that comes up either first or second that has a list of 300 of them.
I just happen to have that list at my fingertips that I will drop into the LinkedIn comments right now.
But I mean,
taking
honestly,
that list. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
No, please, you. I talk too much.
Me too. So taking that list, like you can start to see like who the biggest players are. But you can also see where your brand may fit. Like look at it from a vertical perspective, do some research. Like I said before, platforms like Amazon and Walmart are self-serve. So if you can set that up internally to get your feet wet, if you don't want to get an agency involved, you want to try it in-house for a bit before it becomes a larger investment. That's really what I would recommend if I was working in-house on a brand's side, just to get a really good feel for what works well and what doesn't, and then span out from there. Try some of if you are a brand that has wholesalers that you don't want to really go out on the limb with the non-endemic ads, you want to just like keep it in the family and see how that performs. You really got to just go with a test and learn approach and segment it out, just like we do with everything else. Like if you're trying something new, you're going to do a test and learn and track it and figure out what works best for you as an advertiser.
So should brands work mainly with one, or should you have your fingers in lots of different pies?
In my opinion, it depends on your budget and what you're actually given to test and learn with. And then pick and choose from there, because Amazon, there's no minimum. Walmart, there's no minimum. It's self-serve. So you have all the controls that you want there. Some of these larger networks may have minimums tied to them. So you'll want to understand that and understand the risk versus reward.
And I think understanding how your brand is managing their retail media spend is really valuable, right? So setting aside the giant these 300 retailers for a minute, because there are ways you could work with them too. But for a supplier to these different merchants, right? Some companies have really sophisticated approaches to dealing with this, and others look at this as a line item in trade spending that they just kind of have to do, right? And there's too much potential to just set it and forget it, right? And we know about that in this performance marketing industry probably better than anyone. And so first, understanding how your company's managing that and whether you might be able to add value, I think is a great place to start.
All right, so as we're kind of finalizing here, I just want to ask each of our panelists, like as you were preparing for all of this, doing your research, we're going through the questions and what we think everybody else, would want to hear about. What are your just kind of final thoughts in general on the retail media networks, on this retail media space, and also on how affiliate can be or should not be integrating with this? If you had like one, major kind of takeaway for our listeners, viewers, watchers today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate being on the panel for one, so thank you. And with the panelists here, I learned a lot just from networking with them. But I think the important part is the education. So if a lot of people that are on here are at step education of understanding what is retail media as an idea, as an ecosystem, who are those list of 300 retail media networks? How does my brand want to participate in them? And like to Lauren's part, reaching out or finding whether that's your agency or some of the folks that are on here, how do I connect with experts who are in this space and be one of the people that are the early adopters? To Jim's point, it's a space to be capitalized on, and there's people who are experts within it. To be on the front side of the wave, I think is a really exciting part for brands and for definitely the affiliate space.
Jim?
Gosh, I'm sure people have heard enough from me on this webinar. To me, I think learn is a really important part here, right? I think the most important thing you can do is first understand the space and then start talking to the other teams in your company about what your business's retail media strategy is. And then to explore ways to collaborate and potentially add value. One area, for instance, some of the retail media networks, the promise is great data and there's great targeting data, but the actual reporting data is not there yet, right? They have really basic stuff. Maybe there's a way for affiliate to help in that area. Maybe there's a way to leverage what we know about customers and the rest of the marketing plan to sort of bring these budgets together so companies take a more holistic approach, right? I think it's going to vary by company, but it's an area where you have to stick your head, pull your head out of the sand and really dig in to learn more, because there's huge opportunities in a variety of places. I don't even know what they are yet, a lot of them, right? But that's, to me, is what's great about this space. Is there's so many times when I am shocked because an affiliate marketer has figured out a way to use this thing to make tens of millions of dollars in a couple of years, right? And it happens all the time in our space, right? That's one of the amazing things about this performance marketing world in general, and affiliate in particular, is that imaginative solution.
I agree completely. I think that we can think of a couple of some of these larger subscription brands, subscription box, food subscriptions, like those companies that have been taking advantage of promoting other companies through their subscription, either in like uh, paper inserts that go in their boxes or their packaging or the partnerships that they're doing. And now they're starting to get into affiliate and tracking that through affiliate. And so there's all of these creative ways that we can have this overlap. I think from my perspective, just doing research for this panel, meeting the people on this panel, there are things that we say interchangeably where we're calling them different things, or we're talking about the same thing, but we're kind of wording it a little bit differently. And our industries are all just slightly different. And so I think that goes back to Tom and the education and just us all learning more about this channel. And yeah, I think it's been really beneficial for me even to just learn from Jim and Lauren. So thank you guys, and Tom, of course, too. So
I guess I'm last. So my big takeaway, because I don't have an affiliate background, so it was great to see Jim and Tom at Optimism and just have some conversations that really opened my mind. But just understanding the opportunity that's out there. I see everything as opportunity. I don't think anything is ever going to be completely dead. I've been hearing that about all different sectors of performance marketing for so long that I'm just like, oh, whatever, we'll figure it out over time. But for me, like when I was doing research and just getting acclimated to how to answer some of these questions and where my mind was going, it's really to have deep conversations with I work for agencies. So, having those deep conversations with your clients, understanding what your day-to-day contacts, how this is impacting them, because everybody has their own objectives to meet internally, and then how that can help the bigger picture. So I'm very big on bigger picture thinking outside the box and trying to partner with each individual client and take a very personalized approach because each advertiser has such a different view. They have a different role, different responsibilities. So just really understanding that so you know where you can fit in.
So we did have one more question come in after I posted on the list that Jim had referenced, which shows like the 300 RMNs that are out there. Are we seeing a boom in RMNs that is ripe for consolidation, or will we see even more new RMNs on the scene?
Anybody who remembers the media space, like the ad network space from the 2000s, like 2000, 2010. At one point I worked for a consultancy. We did positioning work for ad networks. And all the ad networks were pretty much the same. They used the same tools. They had the same website access. They used the same third-party data sources, et cetera, et cetera. And so positioning became honestly spin, right? It's like, how can we spin this with a 1% difference that this one has into a story, right? There has to be consolidation in this world. 300 vendors is too much for people to deal with, right? 300 walled gardens is too much for people to deal with.
There are like Criteo, that's what Criteo is trying to do. Like that's what Epsilon is trying to do as well. They're grouping, they have their partnerships and they're grouping these networks together to then serve their ads programmatically based off of the goal that you set in the platform. So there is some of that already happening. And that's where if you work with an agency, those direct relationships really come in handy because then you can cast a wider net to find out which one of these work. And then if you want to have an individual partnership with any of them, then you can go from there. So we didn't even get into the nitty gritty of it all today. This is just skimming the surface, but there's so much more to it. I highly recommend just educating yourself, like we've been talking about. Talk to people who are in the space themselves, talk to your agencies, talk to your internal teams, and just really dig in there.
I think there's a trickle-down effect of how it's going to grow as well. So the idea of, and what they see, like Walmart, 12% of their overall profit is coming from their retail media network. So if I'm a retailer, I'm looking at that. Not only am I buying into that retail media network, probably, or budgets getting allocated there, but I'm looking at my own site and saying, how do I get in the game, right? Where are the entry points where I can I'm not going to be able to stand up a complex, mature retail media network maybe, but where are the entry points on my own site where I can start capitalizing on this retail media trend and start creating ancillary revenue or adding to my value per visitor?
We want to thank all of you today. I want to thank Stephanie and Awin for sponsoring us, Tom for being our newest industry champion, and Tenerity and everything you brought from a different perspective today, Lauren and the Rakuten perspective, Jim for kind of starting this whole tempest in teapot within the PMA over the last few
Stirring the pot. That's
stirring
awesome.
the pot in the PMA. Everybody that watched, and of course to all of our supporters and members of the PMA. It is your support, it is your funding that allows us to be able to put on all of this great educational content that we're putting on kind of for the entire world. So if you're not a PMA member, please do check us out and know that we're doing these webinars every single month now on lots of different topics. So it doesn't matter where you are within the affiliate marketing space, or maybe even outside of it, there's going to be something that applies to you. So be sure that you're following our LinkedIn, subscribing to our newsletter and everything so that you make sure you don't miss out on this great content. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks everyone for joining.